Thank you for joining us in today's webinar. My name is Karan and I am the Content Marketing Manager at Tatvik Analytics. In a brief, we'll talk a little about Tatvik. Tatvik is an authorized Google partner for reselling the Google Analytics 360 suite, one of the leading providers of digital analytics solutions and consulting for SMEs and large enterprises. For today's webinar on BigQuery Advanced, interacting with BigQuery and working with queries, Pankaj and Sarja, our customer success managers, are here with me to present it. Just a few things before we get started. If you've got any questions during the presentation, simply type them into the question box, which you can see on your GoToWebinar control panel. I'll be bringing them up at the end of the presentation. We are sure to answer as many questions as the time permits. So anyways, I think your audience is set. Pankaj and Sajak are all formed up, and I think we have a great audience over here today. And I'll not take your much time, and I'll turn on this session over to Pankaj and Sajak.
Hello. Hi everyone. Good evening. It's good to have a lot of people back from the earlier webinar. Just a quick recap for people who were not able to. I guess like around 42%. Yes, Karan, around 42% people are new for this webinar. So for you guys, like just a quick recap, if you can. Okay, fine. In the earlier webinar, we discussed about introduction to the BigQuery. What is BigQuery? How it is able to store and process like terabytes and petabytes of data in quick time. We also had a look at the architecture of BigQuery. Using Dremel architecture, stores data into columnar IO storage. Then we looked into how we can connect or link Google Analytics 360 data to BigQuery and the use cases for the same. We also had a quick hands-on exercise for the data, the Google Analytics 360 data, which we were storing into BigQuery. And so had some understanding of the integrations, possible integrations with other tools which are famous in industry for BI purpose. So moving ahead, I hope you enjoyed last webinar. I hope you have similar experiences for this webinar as well, because we have a lot of content this time, content in terms of delivery and analysis purpose. So we will start with how we can interact with BigQuery. Yes, we had some interaction last time. Then we will move on to moving to useful concepts and queries. We will here we will talk about some of the advanced level concepts which are important or to keep in mind, and will help us out into the analysis report. Then we will move on to talking about automating the queries. So we can automate the reporting part after we are good to go ahead with writing the queries and doing analysis. So we can automate them and stitch it to our in-house tools. Talking about which, we will also talk about how we can export the data, exporting the data into Excel, R, Python, or any other languages or any other tools that we use on day-to-day basis. Followed by which we will also be discussing or maybe like showing you a demo of how we can join online and offline data. Online data, for example, we will be taking Google Analytics 360 data, and for offline data, we will be using some dummy CRM data. So moving ahead, so Karan, because we have like a lot of content to discuss, and also in between, like if you're a bit fast enough or so please feel free to stop us and do let us know in case we are going a bit faster.
Sure, no worries.
All right. Yeah, perfect. So there are three possible ways we can interact with BigQuery. The first one is web user interface that we have been using, that we have seen in the last webinar, or the one that we are using for ad hoc queries. The second way, second possible way is to use command line tool. Command line tool being in the CLI tool. A lot of people use it for the analysis purpose. I have been an avid user of command line tools in the Linux days. Third one is using REST APIs. So REST APIs are available. It opens n number of opportunities to stitch or connect BigQuery to other tools or applications that we use. So let's have a look. So this is web UI. This one we used last time. We also run some ad hoc queries to analyze the data, and we also looked into how we can export it from the web UI itself. So we'll not spend like a lot of time on this thing. Second one is command line tool. So command line tool is Python based tool which is made available by Google itself. So let me show you a quick demo. I have already installed Google Cloud SDK and the command line tool, so I can access it. So it would be one .exe file which is available on my screen, and I can start using it right away. For saving the time, like I have one query handy with me. I had run it like just few minutes back, so I hope this is available here. Okay, fine. So it may not be a bit visible, but just to give you an idea. So what I'm talking about is, so BQ space query, and then we write the query that we want to write. If I run the query here, I can start. I mean, these results will be available in the command line tool itself. So the best part about this is we can automate the stuff. So when it comes to automating the queries, we will again have a relook at using the command line tools for this particular purpose. It's taking a bit of a time to run the query. So let me just explain you what this query is doing. So what we are doing here is we are listing out the number of users that arrive on the website on a day-to-day basis. So group by date is what it's telling to group or sum the users by date. So moving next, the third possible way to interact with BigQuery is using REST API. So as we are aware of, I mean, I hope a lot of, if you are aware from some tech background, REST APIs are direct HTTP requests sent to the server. They and the good thing with BigQuery is they have provided ready-made client libraries in most of the possible languages, the languages that we have listed down in the right-hand side. So if you have already written application in PHP or Node or Java, so client libraries are available. You can use just include those libraries and start writing the code or start interacting with BigQuery. So integration with your in-house tools or already written applications is pretty much efficient or pretty much easy to go ahead with. All right. So moving ahead, so let's discuss about the useful concepts and queries. We would be covering two types of main queries or analysis that are generally used. So the first one is page sequence analysis, followed by the custom funnels. And after that, we will discuss on the useful concepts which are in BigQuery, which we need to keep in mind while writing the queries or doing the analysis part. All right. So to start with, in page sequence analysis, so what page sequence analysis, what we are talking about here is for a lot of marketing managers or for product manager, the most of the time the question that we have is I want to understand user journey, which pages people visit in sequence before they submit the lead or before they land on contact us page, or in case of e-commerce website before doing the transactions. So this sequence, I mean, what we can do is either we can have page by page reports, or otherwise if I want to also include events, so that is also again like the query that I'm showing you can be modified to include events as well. So let me just take you through the query. So I have already written the query for saving time purpose. So what I'll just explain what we are doing here is. So first thing what we have done is I'm selecting the data from the table by full visitor ID, which is my client ID, then by session and hit numbers. So in one table, I'm inputting the hit numbers, session IDs and client IDs where contact us page was seen into that particular session. So this line where the hits.page path is equal to contact is this condition. And in the second table, what I'm doing is I'm including all the hits, all the pages which are visited by those particular users. And then I join these tables while mentioning the conditions that give me those hits which occurred before or on contact us page. And at the same time, the another condition that I'm using is the type of the hit should be page. So what this will give me is the number of pages and the sequence of pages visited by that particular user before arriving on contact us page. So I run this query, and if I have a look at the results, so we have sorted the results by in descending order of steps to contact. So contact is the contact us page that we have queried into the above query. So what I can say is this client whose session ID was XYZ took 30 steps to complete a contact us page. And at the same time, on the right hand side, if I see I am getting exact sequence followed by that particular user in that particular session. So this, I believe, is the kind of analysis that we are trying to have a look at, so that we can optimize the user journeys for users. So if I observe, like, say it is taking like 30 steps or like 20 steps for a user to arrive at submitting the lead, then maybe I need to bring my lead submission form pretty much ahead on the homepage, or to optimize the overall user experience would be the overall outcome. Moving next.
So moving next on the custom funnels, like we spoke about the custom funnels in the last webinar, that we can get unsampled custom funnels with added benefits like no backfilling is going to be there when you create custom funnels using BigQuery. There is historical information that you can get on funnels getting created by BigQuery. Let's say you are creating a funnel on your Google Analytics UI, then only after the day you have created that particular funnel, you can get the details. If it is a standard funnel, like we have the custom funnels in Google Analytics as well, right? You can put in the data and you can get the data for historical time as well. You can apply filters to the funnels. Funnels cannot just be lame funnels that we have as standard funnels. You can also apply filters, and there can be a number of steps. One of the key limitation of custom funnels in Google Analytics UI is that you can just have 5 steps for that. I'm not talking about the standard funnel, but the custom funnel still has 5 steps to when we are creating it. But with BigQuery, you can go on, and as many as steps you can have. And addition to that, like we have open and close funnels in Google Analytics, we do have the same feature. I mean, the same query can be tweaked to be open and to be a closed funnel. We can move on to show you how these queries are written and what these queries can give you. The output is just going to be as simple as numbers on these individual steps, like you are seeing on the screen right now. And let's move on to the closed funnel first. Right, so what we are doing in here is that I've identified 4 different pages that the user need to go to. If you see the row number 45, it says that if the user has landed first onto my home page, then if the user, so we have a lot of solutions pages on our website, and if the user has moved on to from that home page, if they have moved on to data analytics solutions, and post that, if they have moved on to read any of our blogs, and then finally go on to the contact page and give us a lead, like that, right? So if I do it as a closed funnel, what I do is that I create individual tables of these steps. I get the hit numbers of these steps, and then I join them. I join all these 4 tables one after the other, which essentially gives me the final count of my homepage sessions, solutions page, blogs page, and contact page, right? So I get 1638 people who visited in one of their sessions, who visited on homepage, then moved on to solutions page in the same session, then blogs page, one of the blog pages maybe, and then ended up with contact us page. And similarly, if you go to the open funnel on to your left, in here what happens is that, like you all must be aware that open funnel, while a user is traversing in an open funnel, he or she can directly start from n number of steps, right, and then complete the entire funnel. Let's say a user is not starting from home page, but a lot of our users are directly landing onto the blogs page in this particular scenario, and then going on to the contact page, right? So that's why you're seeing that even though the numbers on the left hand side funnel are lower, there are like 10,000, which is almost 9 or 10 times the actual number on the blog pages. That's why people are more or less landing on the blog pages and then going on to completing the funnel. So these are the open funnels as well, which you can create using BigQuery, right? So the queries are pretty much simple. If anybody is interested, maybe you can just ping in, and we can definitely share the query towards the end of the session as part of the handout. And moving on to the next thing, you must have seen, and some of you might have seen that there have been errors like you cannot cross product two nested fields, right? So there's a concept called flattening. If you recall what Pankaj and I discussed during the last webinar, that the data that gets stored in BigQuery is in the tree format, right? So the tables are not flat structured, they are tree structured, and they have nested fields one under the other. Like there are fields, there are subfields, and then there are subfields, right? So what happens is that BigQuery uses these repeated fields to store the data. Let's say if you have a sample data set wherein I have my full name, my age, and gender, then I have, so these three are the flat fields, but then I have three different nested fields, which are namely phone number, children, and cities. Let's say I might have a couple of children, and then I have one name, gender, and age for one child, and for the other I have a different name, gender, and age. And I might have lived in 5 different cities, so I have place and I have years lived for those particular cities. So this is a kind of data that BigQuery stores when we talk about the nested data, right? So while querying the nested data, BigQuery automatically flattens the data. But if you are dealing with a couple of nested fields at a single time, you need to specifically tell them to flatten this thing. So let's take an example. While we are querying the data using just the below query, which says select full name, age, gender, which were anyway the flat fields, and then I am using one single extended field, that is the nested field, which is cities lived dot place, and then I'm using cities lived dot years lived. So here essentially I'm using one nested field, but it is just one. It's not a combination of two. So that's why BigQuery understands that very well and flattens the data on its own. Like you're seeing, if I had just the 5 users or just 3 users, John Doe, Mike Jones, and I have Anna Karenina, right? So you will have name, age, and gender being flattened against all the cities they have lived in, against all the years they have lived in, right? So this is essentially what flattening does on its own. And what if you are running the query something like this, that give me full name and age from whatever be the table, where cities year lived is greater than 1995, and the children's and my children's age is greater than 3. So in this particular scenario, what I'm doing is that I'm actually querying a couple of nested fields together. So BigQuery does not directly understand that I need to make a cross product of this, and that's when you will see the very famous and one of the most annoying errors that I've ever seen is cannot query the cross product of repeated fields. It will also give you which fields are actually repeated fields and I cannot make a cross product of. What you need to do is just simply flatten one of these fields. So what happens is that particular field, the nested field, will get flattened up, and the value of that particular nested field will then be attributed to all the other different nested fields, like you're seeing on the right hand side. Like let's say if we have John Doe, and then when I'm doing cities lived underscore place, if I am doing that, I will have the answer now. So once I'm flattening that particular thing, then I can use both the nested fields underneath the same query. So it's just flattened, and there are no other parameters, just the table and whatever be the field that you need to flatten. Like if you see the query on the left hand side of the bottom, it says flatten the data set, and then children is the nested field that I want to flatten now. So then it will allow you to do so, right? Moving on to some of the useful functions. So basically BigQuery functions are more or less similar to what you see in your regular SQL, but however they function in a different way than your regular SQL. So some of the functions that I might have been using over the past couple of years are the basic thing is the count. So you do not have distinct count, you have count and then you put in distinct underneath that, and an extended or an enhanced version of that is exact count distinct. So when you do exact count distinct, it will automatically give you only the exact unique count of that particular field, whatever you have inputted and whatever you passed in as a parameter. Then comes group concat. So let's say I have multiple pages. So if you remember the query that Pankaj was showing earlier, wherein we were showing the sequence of that particular pages. What happens is, what we do is that we tell them that group all these particular field values based on a certain key. Let's say the key was my session ID, and based on this session ID, group all these page views in a single field. So if I have step 1 as page A, step 2 as page B, step 3 as page C, if I do a group concat, I will have against my session page A hyphen page B hyphen page C. something like that. And first and last are the ones wherein you, if there is a sequence, or if there is a group of if there's a group of values, the first one will give me the first, and last will give me the last occurrence of that particular field. Post that, I have string and integer commands, which are just the casting functions, like we have it in different other SQLs. Concatenation is plain simple as the word goes by. It is the concatenation of multiple fields. Then I have date converters. I have so onto your right, you can see there are multiple date converters as well, date difference, and then I have day, month, hour, and minute, wherein I just need to pass in the timestamp, and it will return the particular month value, hour value, minute value, or whatnot. Right? I have row number. What it does is that if you are giving them a list of certain values, it will give you row numbers for those values, and by the order that you have already set in your query. Right? So these are pretty simple functions that you need to use, and most of the times, out of the 10 functions that you use in any of your queries, 8 of them will be out of just these. Right? So just wanted to cover up certain useful functions. Post that, there are certain best practices at when it comes to querying the data and optimizing it. What you need to do is, there are a lot of times my team members or certain client team members directly come up with that this is the query and I am facing issues and I do not see the right data that I want, and there are certain discrepancies. I always tell them that start by sketching whatever be the output that you want to see. First, either in your mind or in some Excel sheet or somewhere, start by sketching that particular expected result before directly writing and jumping onto the query. Then at times what happens is that we have a tendency of selecting multiple fields. Let's say I just want 3 to 4 fields, but I'll just select 10 to 15 fields just like that. There's no harm in it, but there is a harm in it, wherein the more fields you select, the more data it has to process, and the more data BigQuery has to process, there'll be an impact on your costing as well as the time it consumes for processing. Additionally, you should always avoid using functions as fields as much as possible, and do not be haywire in terms of providing the times and dates. Be very specific for all the tables that you need data out from, and that will give you faster outputs. So be very specific in providing the times and dates, and also it actually helps in caching for those particular query results as well. You need to, if there are certain queries onto your right, if you are seeing, if there are certain queries or certain subqueries that you need to use for multiple iterations. Let's say there is one particular database which is a subtable, and I might be using it in 10 different queries going on. So what I should be doing is I should be using an intermediate table. What an intermediate table is just whenever you are running a query, there's a result that is thrown. Just save that table and give a suitable name, and that becomes an intermediate table. It will be there forever until you delete that particular table from BigQuery. Right? So use intermediate tables for commonly used subqueries so that you do not need to run the same query again and again, and it saves you processing time, it saves you money. Right? Use caching wherever possible, because what BigQuery does is that the charges that BigQuery applies to your account is only when it has to process certain things. So let's say if you're running a query again and again, and you have not used caching mechanism on, I mean, there's a checkbox for turning the cache on. By default, it is already checked, but let's say you are not doing the caching on, and you are still running a query multiple times. All the times that you are running it, you'll be charged for that. But let's say you have turned that particular cache on, then it saves that particular data for that particular session, for that browser session, and all the times that you are running the same query, it will return the results from the cache that it has stored, and you'll be not charged for any of the cache data results. Right? Always format and comment your query. So this is the best practice. Even some of you might be programmers in your companies. Some of you might be actual database managers, and some of you might be analysts as well. Right? So formatting and commenting your queries is always the key for better readability, better understanding, and debugging of any particular code. Same goes with the BigQuery queries as well. So there is a very, very beautiful button. Even if you are writing a query which is not at all formatted and it does not have any syntax properly maintained, there is a button which is called as format query. Maybe while we are moving back to one of the screens on BigQuery, we can just show even if you are messing up with that particular format, just a single click of that button and it will format the query. If your query after formatting has certain issues or certain errors, it will directly tell you that this query needs to be worked upon, right? And the statements in BigQuery are not case sensitive, but it is always a best practice to capitalize. It will essentially give you an understanding of what different fields or what different words are actual keywords of BigQuery and what are the user-driven keywords, right?
So yeah, I mean, so we have seen like how we can interact with BigQuery, how to write advanced queries for the analysis purpose. So the examples that we have seen is the page sequence analysis or writing funnels, using joins for joining data from multiple different data sets, how to write nested queries, how to use flatten. So the next step is now that like we have the queries written and we have started reporting them to our top management or maybe to other teams. So the next question would be asked would be like how do I make or how do I automate these queries, because we might want to run these queries on daily basis or maybe on a weekly basis, or maybe in some cases we want to run these queries on hourly basis. So to give you the idea, yes, we can automate these queries as well. The first and foremost way that I personally prefer is to use command line tool. Uh, so we have seen like how I can access BigQuery, start writing the queries or manage projects and tables by using the command line tool itself. So what I can do is I can write this query, save it as a shell file. So what I have done, just to give you a short demo. So I have uploaded this queries on one of the virtual machine that I hosted on Google Cloud. So just to give you an idea. So on the one of the virtual machines, I have uploaded my scripts, saved it as report.sh, and yeah, because it is a shell file, so if I just use bash report.sh, I'll start having these results into command line tool itself. Now, if I want to automate this query, I can put this sh file into simply cron job for the machine, and then I can like tell to run this query or run this report on frequent basis. So it could be like per minute basis or per hour basis, or as and when we want.
And so this particular sh file might even contain multiple queries and not just one. All those queries that you need to run on a daily basis. Let's say I need to pull out report for my media performance, my campaign performance, certain banners that I have on my website, and let's say lead generation as well. I put in all these 4 queries on a single file. I have the same file put on the cloud server like you was mentioning, and I schedule a cron job to run on every morning at 8 o'clock. The data should then probably be directly sent to, if I'm automating it in a way that the data can directly move on to my Google Sheets, or can send me if I have written a code that can send me this particular files onto my email, that is definitely something we can do, right? So this is what you can do using command line tool. And moving on to the next thing, we have Google Apps Script. So Google Apps Script, most of you who are developers and most of you who have automated a certain Google Sheets and made reports or made dashboards using Google Sheets, they might be aware of Google Apps Script, which is a scripting language by Google, and it is based on JavaScript. And what it does is that when you use Google Apps Script, you can use, so same Google Apps Script we have also been using for a couple of years now, even for Google Analytics APIs, as well as the key feature for using it with BigQuery is that you get to use the Google BigQuery API to manage BigQuery reports, to manage BigQuery projects, to upload certain new data onto your BigQuery. Let's say you have a CRM data, or let's say you have certain offline stores data, you can upload the new set of data and you can execute the queries directly using the Google Apps Script. So we're not showing you the actual code, and because for that we'll have to go down and we'll have to also need to debug, and we'll also need to tell you the script one by one. But if you are interested in using, so what essentially it does is that I have one particular set of query, I run it, and I can get the direct data in my Excel, in my spreadsheet, right, in seconds, right? So if you are interested in doing any of these kind of work or any of these projects, just feel free to reach out to us, and we can definitely help you guys with. We do this on a regular basis, and we have a ton of scripts ready that if there are certain things, we can definitely help you out with.
Yes. So moving on next, I mean, like once we automate the queries, so the next thing that we are going to cover is how I can export the data. So exporting the data, I'm talking about if I'm running the query into, so running the query into web user interface, or maybe in the command line tool, or maybe using REST APIs. So there are X number of possible ways using which I can export the data. So just to give an idea, we will be having a look at the Google Sheets, or there is a BigQuery connector for Excel, which we have already mentioned in the earlier webinar as well. So just to give you a demo. So this is one of the sample query that I have written, which is giving me data like on number of users per day. All right. So this result, like let's say I want to export. So last time we have seen I can download this result as CSV or JSON file format, but at the same time, like I can save this results to Google Sheets as well, or otherwise. So if the number of rows are more than 16,000 that the report is showing us, then what I need to do is I need to store this as a table into BigQuery. So I mentioned the data destination project, the data set, and I mentioned the destination table where I want to store this data. So let's just save these results into sample table which is results underscore along with the timeline that we have run this thing. So once I save this, like it starts appearing into one of my data set. So this is the result that we had seen, which has this schema of date and user. So the next step involved would be, suppose I want to preview this data. Preview is again like quick preview of what are the possible values, or what are the values available into that table. So I can export this table into Google Cloud Storage. So if the number of rows are more than 16,000 into the resultant data that is going to be exported, we have to export it to Google Cloud Storage before downloading it as a CSV or JSON or Arrow file format. So what I do is I mention the file format. So I'm selecting CSV because this is flat data result that I have. I can use compressions as well, just in case if the result data is pretty much of huge size. So what I do is I have GSS for Google Storage. I mentioned the Google Storage bucket name. So I have already created one bucket with the name webinar_demo. Then I mentioned the file name. So let's make the file name result.csv. It is necessary to mention the extension of the file as well. So I have selected CSV. So it is we have to mention .csv as well. So what this will do is store the entire table into the file test result.csv under the bucket webinar demo. I click on OK, and it will store the data into Google Cloud Storage, from which like I can access it into other things as well. All right. So just to take you back, like so while Sergio was mentioning, like we can format the query also, which is a good practice to use. So to give you an idea, so there is this format query button, which formats the query. So if I'm writing the query in say this fashion, and if I click on format query, this will format the query into readable, or it is actually using Prettify for formatting the queries that we are writing, and if there are any syntactical errors, that will also be highlighted. At the same time, when I run a query, it will also show like how much time it has taken to complete this query. And in other tools, if I'm writing the query, it will also give me an idea like how much data it has processed before coming to the result. Another thing is there is this green icon that you can see. So whenever if there is an error or anything, there would be a red eye symbol which will give me the error that I mean whatever the error is occurring will be shown if I click on this button. This is green because there are no errors and query has run successfully.
So basically, when you are also doing it, when you are exporting it using CSV or JSON or save to Google Sheets, one key thing that I would like to repeat here is that that is a limitation of just storing 16,000 rows. Like you are seeing, there are 31 rows at the moment because we are selecting the date range for 1 month. and let's say whatever be the database, whatever be the data that you have requested, if it has got more than 16,000 rows, then you need to save the table like Pankaj showed, and then you need to push it onto the Google Cloud Storage and then download a CSV from there, right? So yeah, these were the 3-4 different ways wherein you can directly push data from your BigQuery UI. One of the other ways is using the RStudio as well. So many of most of the analysts nowadays are definitely aware of R as a language, and they use RStudio on a regular basis. Pankaj can definitely give a quick session
Yes.
on using it.
Yeah, so there is this bigger query package in R which we can use for connecting with BigQuery, fetching data, extracting the tables and all. So syntax is pretty much simple. I import the bigger query package. I mention my project ID. I write the query that I want to run on BigQuery. Query exec is the function which will run this query and will store the data into result data. Source the file. Authentication I have already taken care of. So how it happens in case of authentication is uh, the RStudio will open up another tab in your browser for authentication, and that will just take care of the authentication part, which stores the data into offline HTTP or auth file, so we don't have to do it again and again. We can also use directly. We can also get this BigQuery data into Excel as well. So a lot of people are using Excel on day-to-day basis for the reporting part. So we had talked about using BigQuery Connector last time, and again, like I'm repeating. So it is publicly available connector. Just download the file, input the keys, and we get started writing the queries. So I have a sample, like this is one of the sample that I have written. This is the same query that we have written into command line tool in the web UI or in the R. So I mentioned the project ID. There would be one unique key. If I visit AppSpot link and I write the query, and results will be available here. The Google Cloud Storage, which is the way that we have just seen, like export it to table, then and then export that table into Google Cloud Storage, maybe as CSV, JSON, or every file, and then we can download it for further analysis. Without further ado, I think there is less time, so let's quicken up. The last example that we are looking at is joining online and offline data. So what I have done is, so there is one publicly available Google data set available for Google Analytics 360, and this is the sample CRM data that I have used for the current demo purpose. So I have customer ID, age, gender, qualification. So this would be like this is dummy CRM data that I have. So what I do is, like I'll have CSV files with me. In BigQuery, I can import these files directly and create a separate table using create table button. I upload the file. The schema can be automatically detected, or otherwise I can also define the schema myself while uploading the file. And while uploading the file, again, like the supported file formats are CSV, JSON, or Avro. This will create a data set and table if the need be into BigQuery. And for the analysis purpose, then we need to have a common identifier to stitch these two data sets together. So this is a sample query that I have already written. So what this query is doing is it selects CRM data, it selects GA data, and it is joining these two data sets based on full visitor ID in GA to customer ID. And if I select these two data sets, so this query is basically like writing queries on both the data sets. Once I run the query, I have the results. So I have customer ID, which came from CRM, transaction ID, which came from GA, along with the GA age, gender, qualification, music preferences. The other thing that to do is the same query I can write into R as well. So what I have done is same thing like that we have seen. So I write the same query into R. I run the reports. I get the result data into R directly by connecting my CRM and online GA data, which is available into as a raw data. So in the raw data, I get the results directly into R, and I can like do further analysis, whatever I like, maybe for predictions or simple. So once the data is available into R, then we can do further analysis, plot the data if the need be, and move ahead for the analysis purpose.
Okay. Well, that was really an amazing session by Pankaj and Sarjak. So right now, as we say, that we'll be moving ahead with the question. So I think I have a list of questions from you guys, and we'll take up one by one. We'll start with one question which has come up from Vasek. He asks, could you mention the way how to merge data from different Google Analytics properties under the same GA360 account using BigQuery? I think Sarjak and Pankaj, I think they can take it up.
Yeah, definitely. So that's a great question, because a lot of time what happens is that we have different properties for our different digital properties. Let's say I have one property for my application, I have one property for my web, and I might have multiple businesses for which I might have different properties. But if I need to understand the standard metrics of all these properties under the same query, what I just need to do is I can use joins. So it's a simple thing wherein you need to you need to put in the same query, and while you are fetching the data from one table, you just don't you need to go ahead, and while you are selecting that particular table name, use the project name colon the table name, and then so go towards the project name. Or at times what we do is that we just use the dataset ID. So and then directly we do that. But let's say you have one particular table in another project altogether and not just another dataset, you can use the hierarchy of project name colon dataset dot the table name, and then have multiple queries, have a join between them, and it will give you the same result under the same under a single umbrella of query. I hope that helps. And if there is a certain particular scenario that you need to do, we can definitely have it looked.
I have one more question from Quentin, and he's asking why are we using legacy SQL and not standard SQL? And would you advise to move to standard SQL?
Yep, I would definitely advise to move to standard SQL, since one of us still is still just sticking onto the legacy one because it's more comfortable in a way. But it totally depends on what you are comfortable with and what you have an expertise in. So if you are very much comfortable on using MySQL and the standard SQL, you can definitely have the standard SQL. That's a way to go. And there's an article by Google, a step-by-step guide, wherein it also tells you it's a developer documentation, which if needed we can definitely share. It's a public one anyway. So wherein it also tells you from if you need to move from legacy to the standard SQL, it gives you, let's say if I have a function called A in legacy, what is it and what is it called in standard SQL. Let's say one of the key examples that I can recall is the word flatten. The flattening that I was explaining towards the mid of this seminar. We have flattening in legacy SQL as compared to we have unnest. It is unnest, UNNEST, and when we could talk about the standard SQL. So there's a huge documentation on migrating from legacy to standard if you want. But yeah, we will definitely advise to use standard SQL.
Okay. Okay, I hope that answers your concern, Quentin. And if you still have any other queries, please feel free to write us at hello@tatvik.com. I think I have a couple of more questions before we end this session. One is coming from Matthias. He is asking, is BigQuery more suitable for daily GA exports in Tableau than using the core API?
Yes. I would suggest to use BQ for daily GA exports when it to Tableau or any other data warehouses that you use. Reason being, with core reporting API, we are anyway getting like aggregated data. In BQ, I first thing, like I have customization possible. I can customize the data the way I want, and if I want the hit level or granular reports, yes, that is possible with BQ. And as we have shown, like what we can do is we can write the queries. It would be like one-time task, then automate it, or maybe like 8 in the morning, and it will export unsampled hit level data into Tableau or any other data warehouse that I'm using. So yes, we would suggest to go for BQ when it comes to daily GA exports.
There's one more question. I think it's coming from Pablo. He's asking that if we have any Google Apps script code to fetch BigQuery data and push in Google Sheets.
Yes, like I was mentioning that we use AppScript on a daily basis, and we have AppScript to directly send data to Google Sheets. Just feel free to reach out to us at hello@tatvik.com with the exact query that you have. Maybe if even if it's a sample query, I can give you a script wherein it can send data, it can fetch data from a BigQuery and send it to Google Sheets. Yeah, that's pretty much doable.
All right. I hope that answers your concern, Pablo. And if you still have any questions, if you guys still have any questions, please send it to us. We are here to answer all them. Okay. I think there's one coming from Mohit Preet, and he's asking if we can give an example of a custom attributions for user, internal citer, behavior, which are not present in GA360 dashboards.
Yeah,
Sarajak has an answer for that.
Right. So if you so all those different cohort analysis, one key example that I used in the last seminar as well was that you can do a lot of cohort analysis. If you recall the cohort analysis which is in Google Analytics 360 dashboards, it is very limited. You can just have a couple of cohorts and you cannot play around with different cohorts. But with BigQuery, you can write a custom query and you can build your own cohorts as per the definition of cohort that you like. And apart from that as well, like you were asking that certain other custom attribution analysis. So just to reiterate on that, the attribution model that is being followed. Let's say I have done 10 sessions. Then the source medium reports that are there, I mean the source medium values for those 10 different things in BigQuery, unfortunately will just follow the last non-direct click, because that being the standard definition by Google Analytics. But if you have a custom implementation done, like we have done it for a couple of our huge clients, wherein we have tweaked their entire attribution model and we have used custom dimensions to have custom attribution for against the last non-click direct. Then what happens is that this particular custom dimension flows into BigQuery, and then you can have custom attribution models even built on BigQuery database, right? So that's doable, but it requires certain custom implementation prior to the data flows into BigQuery. It requires certain implementation onto your website or onto your application, and then it is definitely doable.
I think we have covered up almost most of the questions which we have today. If you still have any other questions, you can still reach out to us at hello@tatvik.com, and we'll be more than happy to answer each one of them. So yeah, Mohit, I think that was pretty good enough for you to go ahead with your concerns. And if you still have any questions, as I said, you can mention on our email.
And yes, so I understand that a lot of you might also have a question on whether we'll be sharing these queries or not. So these are very much yeah. So these are the standard queries we can definitely share, and the queries that we were showing on in during the hands-on, we'll definitely be sharing towards the end of webinar, as and when you get these handouts for this. Yeah, we'll do that.
Great. Thanks a lot. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sarajak. Thank you, Pankaj. We really appreciate you guys being here. And before we part our ways for the day, I would like to inform you about our next webinar. I think we are enjoying our couple of webinars which we are conducting. So the next webinar will be on how to make the best use of Google Analytics 360 data for e-commerce business. This will be on the 14th of December, and it will be conducted by Anshul, one of our customer success manager, along with Bismay, our data science lead over here at Tatvik. Well, thank you guys for coming out, and we really, we hope that our session was resourceful to you. And that's it for today from our side. And in case you have any questions, queries, concern, anything, please do not hesitate. Shoot a mail on hello@tatvik.com, and our team of experts like Sarajak and Pankaj over here will be there to answer each one of them personally. And I'll take note of it. Don't worry about that. And well, it's time to sign off. Thanks everyone. Goodbye. Hasta la vista.
Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.